There's a lot of movies where a singular location serves a similar purpose across stories. A ton of superhero movies have scenes set in or on trains. They're fast, you can't get off immediately, it's public, it's a confined space that's still long enough to sustain a scene or an entire movie. Even more rom-coms have scenes set at airports. It's the last location before departure, putting oceans of distance between the protagonists. Takeoff serves as a deadline, forcing the story into a race against the clock. There's another example of a location in movies, TV shows, and games that serves a similar purpose, but it intrigues me because of the sheer volume of reasonings behind its use in a particular scene. Elevators. Elevators might be seen as a mundane setting. Nearly every building in a metropolitan area has one. They go up, they go down. What more is there? Honestly, a lot. I'm going to go through too many examples of elevators in movies, TV, and games, explain the role the elevator plays in the scene, and try and uncover the purpose behind this piece of transportation in media. To state the obvious, elevators are small. They're confined, cramped spaces, and that quality plays into nearly every reasoning behind its usage. First, because of their compact nature, elevators are the perfect setting for humor. This humor can come in a couple different shapes and sizes. It can be a purely comical scene. In The Nice Guys, Holland and Jackson pop out of the elevator to immediately see people dying. They back into the elevator, and in the glass background, we see someone get thrown out of the building as the Muzak version of Girl from Ipanema quietly plays over the elevator speakers. In Avengers Endgame, everyone gets into an elevator and they force Hulk to take the stairs, which he resents. And in Age of Ultron, an elevator is the subject of a thought experiment about Thor's hammer.
But if you put the hammer in an elevator, it would still go up. Elevator's not worthy.
I'm gonna miss these little talks of ours.
In Elf, Buddy's father Walter works in the Empire State Building, so there's a couple different elevator scenes, but the most famous one is definitely when Buddy first gets on the elevator. Like the escalator, he's never seen it before, so we get to see him Amelia Bedelia his way into learning how to use these new pieces of technology. He presses every button and remarks that,
"Looks like a Christmas tree,"
to the sadly unamused businessman next to him. In Who Framed Roger Rabbit, we get a quick scene of some slapstick comedy. Eddie gets in the elevator and gets flattened and hurled towards the ceiling while the monotone elevator operator warns him too late every time. In Only Murders in the Building, we get Nathan and Teddy awkwardly beating each other up behind Howard. In Modern Family, Cam and Mitchell lose Lily in an elevator right in front of them. And I'm putting the Jason and Emily elevator scene in the comedy section too. A lot of the time, the elevator delivers a look how horrible these characters look moment, like in The Hangover. Their crazy night has been displayed directly in their appearance. Alan has a missing child and a baby Bjorn, Stu has a missing tooth, and you can see the look of regret on Phil's face. This can also be tweaked to a look how different these characters look. In Baby Driver, we see the group riding in an elevator after a job. There's a middle-aged ringleader staring forward, a couple making out, a guy with a teardrop tattoo chewing bubblegum, and a teenager with headphones in. They're sharing the same space, but they're all in their own world. Sometimes the humor comes from the mission the elevator is on the road to. In The Blues Brothers, which might be the first use of the funny elevator Muzak scene, the scene splits between clips of the brothers calmly riding in the elevator and a full-fledged military force gaining on them outside. In X-Men Origins Wolverine, they're in the middle of a mission. The elevator is the road to get there. And when it's intentionally broken down, we get a moment of humor coming from the fact that these people that are being forced to be together kind of all hate each other. Actually, they all just hate Deadpool.
Just shut it.
God, you ever shut up, pal?
Other times, the humor comes from surprise. In 1959's North by Northwest, Roger Thornhill is mistaken for a government agent, and a spy has his people attempt to kill him by getting him drunk and crashing his car. He tells his mother, she doesn't believe him. The two of them end up riding in an elevator with his kidnappers, and his mom bluntly asks them,
"You gentlemen aren't really trying to kill my son, are you?"
Another Cary Grant classic, My Favorite Wife, has a scene where his character sees his supposedly dead wife as the elevator doors close. Him and Ingrid Bergman stare at each other in an elevator in Indiscreet. Him and Audrey Hepburn argue in an elevator in Charade. Him and Doris Day ride side by side in an elevator in That Touch of Mink. There's a scene of him in an elevator in Holiday.
I could have walked there.
He's a lightning rod for elevator scenes. They actually referenced his elevator scene from My Favorite Wife in The Parent Trap when Nick sees his ex-wife. Humor can also come from awkwardness. Sometimes this involves the character saying something weird or looking weird in front of a stranger. In Love, Rosie, she overshares about a first-time experience on the phone, while a stranger is in the elevator with her. In Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man is in the elevator with Mr. Davenport. He's in the costume, it's immediately kind of embarrassing because he looks like a fan, and then we get this short introspective scene of this superhero talking about how his costume is itchy, something the audience has never considered. And then he says something to make it awkward.
It rides up in the crotch a little bit, too.
The awkwardness from the elevator scene in The Hunger Games comes from the fact that Joanna fully strips in front of Katniss, Peeta, and Haymitch. In the Grand Budapest, we get some elevator scenes where the lobby boy and the operator stand awkwardly on the side of other characters. Sometimes, nothing is happening at all in the awkward small space. The lack of other activities available in the elevator allow for the possibility of something to happen. That brings us to the second reason. Again, elevators are a contained space. There's nothing else to do, it's boring. This boring aspect of the elevator can force a development. Characters can have a moment of reflection, leading to an epiphany, especially when the elevators get stuck, which in movies is often. In You've Got Mail, the stuck elevator helps Tom Hanks realize that his girlfriend sucks. In X-Men Days of Future Past, their conversation in the elevator is the first clue to helping Quicksilver realize that Magneto is his father. In Shallow Hal, the inciting incident of the whole movie takes place in an elevator. Hal and Tony Robbins get trapped in an elevator, so they talk. Tony discovers some deep-rooted issues with the way Hal views women, and gives him the gift to see people for how they are on the inside, jump-starting the plot of the movie. In Vanilla Sky, the climax of the story takes place in an elevator. It's the location where the mystery of the movie gets revealed. In 13 Going on 30, Jenna's neighbor Becky explicitly says that Jenna has never spoken to her before.
Why are you talking to me?
Why not? We are neighbors, right?
But you usually ignore me.
But they're stuck together for the next 30 seconds, so what better way to pass the time than to begin a friendship? In Avengers Endgame, Tony has a conversation with his father in an elevator.
I have a little girl.
A girl would be nice. Less of a chance she'd turn out exactly like me.
What'd be so awful about that?
Let's just say that the greater good has rarely outweighed my own self-interest.
And although it's short, it relates to Tony's decade-long character arc and leads to the eventual climax of the movie.
The only thing you really fight for is yourself. You're not the guy to make the sacrifice play, to lay down on a wire and let the other guy crawl over you.
But this is a second chance. I got my second chance right here, Cap. Can't roll the dice on it. And I am Iron Man.
Even when the characters aren't in the elevator, it can spark a realization. In The Truman Show, Truman attempts to get on an elevator in a building that's being used as a break room for the actors, and witnessing this convinces him about the falsity of his world. The contained space can also serve as a vehicle to develop tension, both romantic and violent. In terms of romantic examples, look no further than The Pinnacle, 500 Days of Summer. Tom and Summer are riding in the elevator. She hears the Smiths coming out of his headphones and decides to tell him that he has good taste in music. It could be a completely innocuous interaction, but Tom is a self-entitled romantic, so he assigns great cosmic significance to this girl's recognition of one of the Smiths' most famous songs and decides he's in love with her at first sight. A good example of a less good movie is New Year's Eve. Ashton Kutcher and Lea Michele's characters get stuck in an elevator. They spend the whole movie begrudgingly getting to know each other, then when they get out, reconnect at the ball drop and kiss. One part of the romantic duo in the apartment is Fran Kubelik, who works as an elevator operator.
The characters you meet. Something happens to men in elevators. Must be the change of altitude. The blood rushes to their head or something.
In Jerry Maguire, the elevator scene sets up the emotional declaration of the movie.
I wonder what he said.
My favorite aunt is hearing impaired. He just said, "You complete me."
You complete me.
Most of the other romance movies save the kiss for the elevator.
I wish you would just slam me against these elevator doors and kiss me.
In The Ugly Truth, Mike and Abby spend the whole movie hating each other. They end up in the elevator, it opens to Mike's floor, they say goodbye, then goodbye again, then the power of the elevator compels them and they kiss. In Mallrats, Brody and his girlfriend start out hating each other. This is turning into a pattern, until they get into the elevator and
Something happens to men in elevators.
And they do a lot more than kiss. The romantic event in an elevator poured over into TV too. Going back to Zooey Deschanel for a second, she's in not one, but two romantic elevator scenes. The second of which being in New Girl. Elevators are actually pretty big in this show. It's the setting of the let's not think about it scene in season 2, the place where Jess's boyfriend tells her why their relationship isn't working,
It's Nick.
and the place where Nick and Jess get back together in season 6. In Gossip Girl, it's the setting of a kiss between Dan and Serena, and one between Dan and Blair, for completely different reasons. Sex and the City's got one with Carrie and Big, and then there's the White Whale, Grey's Anatomy. The elevator is basically a character in Grey's Anatomy. It's the setting for so many memorable moments. In terms of romance, there's the George and Izzy kiss, the Derek and Meredith kiss, the I miss you scene. Derek proposes to Meredith in an elevator for Christ's sake. Then there's the moments of awkward humor. Derek riding in an elevator with his ex-girlfriend, ex-wife, and current girlfriend. A group of doctors come in one by one to comment on the chief's dyed hair. Addison almost has a breakdown over a voice in an elevator at the private practice. The Grey's elevator serves another purpose, though. It's a drama show, so of course the elevator has to be a setting for tension. Heart in an elevator, opening to a flood, Izzy meeting Denny, and the best one, the season 6 finale. In this two-part finale, Gary Clark, a deceased patient's grieving husband, comes into the hospital with the intention of shooting the doctors he deems responsible for his wife's death. In this episode, he gets on the elevator with Christina and asks her where to find Derek. It's a very tense scene, as we just saw him shoot Reed and Alex in a supply closet, and it goes on for an uncomfortable amount of time. The other notable appearance of the elevator in this episode is with Alex. He witnesses Gary Clark shoot Reed, Gary shoots Alex, and Alex crawls into an elevator. Later in the episode, Gary continues the shooting in the lobby. Mark and Lexi run and call the elevator, and it opens to a pool of blood and an almost dead Alex. The tension of violence is the next common use of the elevator. In the final third of The Silence of the Lambs, we follow two separate misdirections. We have Clarice and the police going to investigate two houses, with the cops at the wrong address and Clarice alone in a house with Buffalo Bill. And we have a scene that centers around the elevator. The paramedics are transferring who they think is an injured cop while the police find blood leaking out of the ceiling of the elevator. They assume it's Lecter, which leads them to finding the body of the actual injured cop in the elevator, meaning Lecter is in the ambulance. In The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, Walter and Ted get in an incredibly dramatic fight in the elevator over a Stretch Armstrong doll. I guess this one only half counts because the fight is entirely in Walter's head, but his desire to violently battle his boss is real. Die Hard and Die Hard with a Vengeance both have tense elevator scenes. The former poses a threat of violence because of the explosion that fills the elevator shaft, and the latter because of John realizing that the bank's security guards in the elevator with him are wearing fake badges. In Captain America: Winter Soldier, Steve gets in an elevator with a bunch of Hydra soldiers. We watch the scene get tense, then Steve gives them a warning to get out before he beats all of them up. This scene gets a callback in Avengers Endgame, when he uses the knowledge about Hydra infiltrating S.H.I.E.L.D. to take the less violent approach to get what he wants. This juxtaposition of violence and peace is the focus of one scene from the video game A Way Out. Leo and Vincent are riding in an elevator, and the guard thinks he recognizes them. At this point in the game, they're both escaped convicts, and you can choose between the pacifist route or the violent route. Sometimes the violence happens the second the doors open, like in The Godfather, The Departed, or Kick-Ass. Sometimes it's revealed long after the violence has occurred. There's a clever instance of this in This Bed We Made, where as you're walking down the hallway you keep hearing the sound of an elevator ring. Then when you walk up to it, you see that it's because there's a body stuck between the elevator doors, preventing them from closing. Sometimes we're able to avoid this violence altogether because of the elevator. Elevators serve as a timed escape. The character has to get in the elevator, slam the button, and have the doors closed before whoever is chasing them can corner them in the elevator. This works partially because it plays on an experience the audience is familiar with.
Sometimes it seems like the elevator door does stay open forever. Well, there's a close door button. But does it work?
Everyone knows door close buttons don't usually work. This actually has a real reasoning relating to the doors needing to stay open for a minimum of 3 seconds to be in accordance with the Americans with Disabilities Act. So because of this delay in the door closing and our inability to make it close faster, in a scene when you see a character run into an elevator being tailed by someone trying to kill them, we understand the tension of the situation. If the character, say, ran into a stairwell, we know that their chances of survival depend entirely on them. If they're a fast runner, if they can jump down entire flights at once, if they can barricade the door behind them, we know they can escape. But with the elevator, the character's chances of survival are entirely dependent on the elevator's decision to close. It presents an interesting form of poetic justice, of humans being harmed because of the technology we help create. And this brings us to the next step after violence. If we take the action set piece up a notch, we fall into horror territory. Elevators are great potential for horror sequences. The first scene of Stranger Things opens with a man running through a hallway with blaring alarms from an unknown threat into an elevator. He made it. He's safe. We hear a guttural growl, and an animal pounces on him as the elevator doors close shut. It's a great opener, and it sets up a couple of things about the show. We get to see the primary location for the antagonist, Hawkins' lab, we get a taste of the horror element of the show, and we understand that the creature we're going to be fighting is intelligent. One of the most famous instances of an elevator in film is in a horror movie. 1980's The Shining has a scene where Wendy sees gallons of blood pour out of the hotel elevators. This can be seen as the malevolent forces of the hotel lurking behind every door, a reference to its violent past, the scene where the hotel becomes its own character, or a way to show that Wendy herself has the ability to shine. It can be the setting of a gory horror scene. Dawn of the Dead has one, Cabin in the Woods has the revelatory scene of Dana and Marty seeing all the creatures in the elevator, then the gory scene where they let them all out to attack the guards. Mission Impossible isn't horror, but it has a long elevator mission that ends with a Final Destination death, which, hey, speaking of course Final Destination 2 has a disturbing elevator sequence. Sometimes this horror is more mysterious, though. One episode of The Twilight Zone, entitled The After Hours, follows Marcia White as she's taken to a non-existent floor of a department store. Like the other episodes of The Twilight Zone, this succeeds not from a gory scene, but from an ominous atmosphere. In one scene in Inception, Ariadne takes the elevator past a moving train to a hotel room where Cobb's wife tries to stab her. There's also a couple elevator scenes surrounding the occult. Silent Hill 2, a game and a franchise closely associated with the occult, has a fun quiz show and a less fun death scene in an elevator. The 2010 M. Night Shyamalan movie Devil follows a group of strangers that get stuck in an elevator, and one of them is suspected to be the devil. In Nightmare on the 13th Floor, writer Elaine Kalisher witnesses a murder after being stuck in an elevator that leads her to attempt to understand the mysterious, non-existent 13th floor of the Wessex Hotel.
Hey, Sarge, where's 13?
There isn't one.
Weird. Most hotels don't have a 13th floor.
When a detective finds the floor, we see that it's filled with satanic imagery, taxidermied wolves, and a psychopath with an axe. The floor is revealed to be the location of a murder carried out by a satanic cult looking to achieve immortality. So there we have a very short list of usages of elevators in film, TV, and games. Now for the why. To answer the reasoning, we have to start with the creation. In 236 BC, the first elevator is invented by Archimedes. As Vitruvius later reports, the invention functioned by using ropes and a drum. It wasn't used for daily transportation of people until 1853, when Elisha Otis gave his demonstration of his safety hoist, a mechanism that prevented the box from falling if the rope that suspended it was cut. The device was advertised, the first commercial elevator was installed in a department store in New York in 1857, and they became standard by the 1880s. By the time they come to be referenced in movies and TV, they've been in buildings for over 50 years, and they've existed in rudimentary forms for over 2,000 years. So how does their long and rich history contribute to their characterization and usage in media? I'll attempt to answer that. Elevators can be chosen to be used in scenes for a myriad of reasons. We'll start out simple. An elevator car is private. 4 walls, small space. It's the perfect place for a one-on-one conversation. If you want your characters to be able to speak freely, you can set a scene in an elevator car. You can make their journey as long or as slow as you'd like, and the audience is able to easily suspend their disbelief at the speed of the elevator. This private element can drive the story as well. People hate standing in dead air. It's awkward. We naturally want to fill the dead air with words.
We're stuck in an elevator together. You're not going to talk to me at all.
Fine. We can talk.
If you have 2 characters that are fighting and need to make up, putting them in an elevator for a couple of seconds or trapping them in one for a couple of hours can lead to a resolution. Elevators are a good, less obvious way to get a single shot of all your characters close together. Forcing all your characters to walk next to each other in a line or sit all on one side of a booth can look stilted. Elevators are a good location where it's natural for everyone to stand facing forward, so we have a good excuse to get a shot of how awkward or disjointed or hungover the characters look. This shot composition also lends itself well to action scenes. The tight nature of the space allows the director to flex their filmmaking muscles and get creative with the fight blocking. Elevator shots can also allow for the dramatic entrance of a character. The director can play around with this too. You can have the elevator open and get right into the action. You can use it as your first group establishing shot in a scene, can play around with the elevator bell preceding the entrance to build suspense. There's some options there. Elevators are also missable. You can't miss a stairwell. You can't miss an escalator. Stairs are stationary, and escalators and moving sidewalks loop. But elevators have to be intentionally called, boarded, have a floor selected, and then wait for the door to close. This quality also lends itself well to suspense. The elevator can be stopped from the inside to force someone into conversation.
You're trapped. And you don't have to talk. I'll do the talking.
Or it can be stopped from the outside to force oneself into the elevator.
Do not come in here. Don't follow me in here!
Because of this dramatic element, anytime I see a slightly too long shot of an elevator closing, I just assume someone's going to stop it with their hand or their briefcase. But sometimes it can just not be stopped at all.
Yeah, the guy in the $4,000 suit is holding the elevator, but the guy doesn't make that in 3 months.
This one's kind of random, but the elevator can be used to signify that a character is unimportant. A weird cliche has come out of elevators, where a character will walk out of an elevator and get crushed by the doors. It's embarrassing, and it shows that even this machine that we know is supposed to stop closing if it senses an object between the doors doesn't recognize the character. Those are the main practical reasons. Now for the symbolic ones. Starting on a light note, elevators can symbolize hell. Their vertical nature allows for the creation of an easily understood metaphor. Hell is represented in media to be down. In Babylon, they take stairs down through the levels of the underbelly of Hollywood. Dante travels down through the circles of hell into the center of the earth, and when they're looking to pose questions about hell or morality, the elevators go in the same direction. Ellen Ripley takes the elevator down to fight the unknown alien species. Gemma takes the elevator down from the severed floor to the testing floor, where she's tortured in individual themed rooms. And the elevator from Devil has the literal devil in it. Conversely, when characters are overwhelmingly honest and good, like Charlie, the elevator goes up, through the ceiling. When they're reaching understanding, like David, up again. This notion of rising to a positive fate and descending to a negative one can be subverted too, in movies like The Hunger Games, where the tributes ascend to the hellish arena. Them being transported up into the arena might have been another instance of clever marketing to convince the tributes that they're part of an honorable competition, a form of empty elevation to convince the people at the bottom that they're equal. One element that's become solidified in our minds of elevator culture, if that's a thing, is elevator muzak. The idea was, slow, calming music could lessen feelings of stress in situations of discomfort. That's why it gets used in elevators, which can be confined, uncomfortable spaces.
You get nervous in small, confined spaces?
And customer service calls, which can be long-lasting, frustrating conversations.
Sorry, that was a family emergency.
Oh no, what's wrong?
You know what? That's private.
Boundaries, Dwight, come on.
Unfortunately, this music sort of had the opposite effect. In a kind of Pavlovian way, the music used to reduce feelings of stress in uncomfortable situations became associated with them, and on its own came to remind people of these feelings of discomfort and anxiety.
The worst place to hear your own music is probably in an elevator. It hasn't happened yet, but I'm sure it'll get to a point where I'll hear like home in some terrible elevator music.
The elevator music also serves a practical purpose aside from its psychological one. Music masks noise, and elevators make a lot of noise. They're big metal machines, and those sounds of metallic clanking and whirring can unsettle its rider. The music gives them something else to focus on. This music is actually kind of related to elevators in a story sense. In some tense elevator scenes, humor is added by having this long shot of characters who are about to fight or hate each other or just lost a fight be overlapped with soft, calming elevator music. In The Machine, the music slightly masks the sound of worrisome mechanical noises. And in the movie, it slightly masks the tension, contempt, or stress that exists between the characters. The integration of this muzak into society has led it to be parodied in movies like A Night at the Roxbury, where Doug and Steve bob their heads to the instrumental version of What is Love. Elevators are a symbol of development, speed, and travel. This invention revolutionized the urban landscape. It allowed people to reach their destinations quickly without exerting any energy, the former of which plays heavily into its representation in horror, and it's a form of travel. This idea of traveling, starting out in one place and ending in another, is often mimicked in the story. 2 examples of this come to mind. First, severance. In this TV show, employees at Lumen have undergone a procedure which severs their mind in 2, allowing one part of their consciousness to live freely and the other to work all the time.
And I have no choice.
Well, every time you find yourself here, it's because you chose to come back.
This mental transition is mimicked through the physical transportation in the elevator. The outie gets ready, goes to work, boards the elevator, and halfway down, the innie comes out. In this example, the elevator is both a waypoint and a transitory location. It's the place in the real world where we shift our personality, forget about our outside life, and dedicate ourselves to working tirelessly for our company.
You get a chip implanted in your brain, and it cuts off anything about your outside life, and you only know your world inside where you work.
It's the place in the show where the severance chip is activated, where the characters attempt to end their journey, and of course, in keeping with elevator tropes, stop the doors to have a dramatic goodbye kiss. The second example of the elevator mimicking the story is in the Rusty Lake franchise. The elevator appears in a handful of games in this series. In Cube Escape Case 23, a hidden elevator is located in the wall of a cabin. This adds to the unsettling nature of the setting. Elevators exist in corporate settings. They're for people with places to go. They shouldn't, and don't, exist in rustic cabins inhabited by people enjoying the leisure of a remote oasis, with no regular responsibilities or time-sensitive tasks. The unsettling nature of this elevator is, of course, heightened when you're being chased by a corrupted soul, only being able to escape when the elevator doors close. The elevators in Cube Escape, The Cave, and Theater are disturbing because of their location. Elevators require power. They can't exist on a stage or in a cave. The ones in Hotel and Birthday are disturbing because of their destination. In these 2 games, the player, Dale, enters the elevator and rides into the forest. Part of the intrigue of a device like an elevator is that the story can be elevated by breaking its rules. Elevators go up, and they go down. So when one detaches from the mechanics controlling it, it presents an interesting set of unseen obstacles and opportunities. The elevator is an ironic set piece. Dale gets in this elevator, a machine that's meant to move you from one place to another, but he's not really going anywhere.
Your mind is reaching a higher state of consciousness. You are learning about your past and your future, what you may become. Now, continue your journey.
He's going back through his life, somewhat stuck in time or a liminal space. It gives the illusion of progress. The elevator can be seen as a barrier. It can be a societal barrier. In Love, Rosie, Rosie's on the phone with her friend Alex. She has to tell him something embarrassing that's happened, but the elevator is a societal barrier. She's unable to say what she wants to say because there's a stranger that's 2 feet behind her in a 3x3 box and will be for 20 more floors. It can also serve as a physical barrier. Characters can elude capture by running into elevators. And it can be an emotional barrier. At the end of the Maltese Falcon, Sam decides to turn Bridget in. And the final shot of her in the elevator, the doors closing, casting bird-like talons on her face, cements the end of their relationship. The elevator solidifies a similar barrier between the driver and Irene in Drive. He kisses her goodbye, then brutally kills the man that's going to kill her, and once he's done, he turns around and she's already out of the elevator. Then the doors shut between them. When an elevator is not a barrier, it's a gateway. Its unbreakable qualities can be broken to open new doors. In Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, the elevators that we know to move up and down move sideways. This strange alteration contributes to the intrigue of the magical world. In Being John Malkovich, the elevators that we know to open fully open halfway, and everyone gets out crouching down. This contributes to the fragmented, semi-real setting we're entering. In Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, the elevators that we know to stop at a predetermined destination crash through the ceiling of the building.
It's an elevator. It's a wonkavator. An elevator can only go up and down, but the wonkavator can go sideways and slantways and long ways and back ways and square ways and front ways and any other ways that you can think of.
Up and out. What kind of room is that?
Hold on.
Another instance of Wonka's unbelievable imagination. Elevators as a setting just present a number of interesting opportunities. In terms of presentation, elevators can be designed in a number of ways. You can have mirror walls, glass walls, a modern silver elevator with bright buttons, a vintage birdcage one with an accordion door. They can be open and airy.
Congratulations to you and your team for building the world's largest passenger elevator.
Or closed and cramped.
I just remembered I get claustrophobic in elevators.
And each distinction opens the door for a new type of scene. Elevators can falter. They can get stuck.
What's the matter? Is it stuck? Between the 5th and 6th floor. This can only happen to me.
And elevator faults in particular are unique. Just look at other modes of transportation. Stairs can't falter, so that closes off those story possibilities. A car can falter, but unless you're submerged underwater, you can open the door and flag down another car. It opens up a story possibility, but a different one. An elevator is a unique, everyday location where it's entirely possible, at least in the movies, to have a life-changing experience that pushes you forward because you were stuck. By their nature, elevators also present a great opportunity for hijinks. There's multiple in a row, some people want to go up, some want to go down, they all arrive at random times. The Parent Trap's a prime example of this. Hallie, Martin, and Elizabeth board the elevator on the left, but Elizabeth forgets her sweater. As she walks back to get it, Annie and Chessie round the corner with the dog. It jumps into the elevator with Hallie. Elizabeth walks back to the twins she didn't come with, Annie and Chessie get in the elevator on the right, and into the left elevator go Nick and Meredith, at the perfect time for him to have his my favorite wife moment as he sees Elizabeth. Just Go With It has a similar scene. Danny leaves his hotel room to take the elevator down to Catherine's room to tell her he's in love with her. The doors open to his cousin Eddie and his current girlfriend Palmer. They get hastily engaged, and then the elevator doors open and Catherine emerges, clearly with the same idea as Danny. New Girl has similar hijinks with Nick and Jess trying to meet on the same floor.
Jess!
Nick! Why are you down there?
Stay right
there!
Even Revenge of the Sith has the elevator stopping, going down, going up, R2-D2 bumbling around setting fires, and Anakin cutting holes in the roof. Hawkeye kinda makes jokes out of these hijinks. Kate Bishop points out how the unpredictability of elevators foils Yelena's attempt to kill Clint.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the bruschetta because it looks like you already lost him.
He's in the elevator.
Well, yeah, out of 65 floors, you think you're just going to magically guess which one he's on?
12th floor.
These hijinks go all the way back to the early 20th century, with Buster Keaton's elevator chase scene. So, in summation, elevator scenes play off of one of the two reactions to this device: fear or enthusiasm. When Otis displayed the device at the New York Crystal Palace in 1853, some people feared it. After all, progress is scary, and new products can malfunction. Final Destination plays off this fear. On the other hand, when Otis displayed the device, some people recognized its potential, its ability to transform travel in urban spaces. Willy Wonka and Shallow Hal play off this excitement. The elevator, claustrophobia and boredom and all, can bring out an epiphany.
I can't change who I am, Dan.
Me neither. I mean, I was just completely, utterly, mortifyingly wrong.
Well, if I ever get out of here.
Where are my Tic Tacs?
I came home tonight and got into the elevator to go to my apartment. An hour later, I got out of the elevator, and Brinkley and I moved out. Suddenly, everything had become clear.
Elevators exist outside of space and time. The people in them share a short bond. A moment of brevity from a fast-paced world in a device that only goes at one speed. Still, elevators are motion. They move from one location to another, and can move the characters in them towards resolution, romance, violence, or a new unknown. The wide menu of possibilities and interpretations of the elevator in media mirrors the possibilities offered by a moment of confined connection. But in the end, they go up, they go down. What more is there?